Thank you. Sorry to be the last person between you and lunch, but we'll make this enjoyable and move through it fairly quickly. Some of my slides are going to be more detailed, but I understand that you'll be getting the slides afterwards, or they'll be posted so you can read more as needed. There's going to be about 3 different parts to my presentation. The first being some key ideas. We talked about ideas this morning in our keynote. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the bigger picture. This was some recent work that's been completed by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that was released last week. And so I've got some of that for you as well. And then we're going to talk about the local stuff. And my first point is the future. The future starts after this presentation for you. It's not about our grandchildren and their children and their children's children. It's about us too. Okay, what we need to do when we leave here today, is think about some of those ideas and what we could do individually, but also collaboratively as well. So the new climate normal. So the stability is a thing of the past. We're not going to see, regular summers, regular springs, regular winters. Things are going to change and get really mixed up. And for that reason, we need to become more resilient. We need to be able to understand these changes and prepare for them. So in terms of resilience, we've talked a lot about that as well as a key idea, and that it allows us to anticipate and adapt to ongoing challenges that enables us to cope and even thrive in the face of change. The outcomes of what we're looking for are robust ecosystems, sustainable economies, and healthy people. And yes, we can have all 3. So transforming to a new normal, next exit is change. What lies ahead of us is going to be a challenge to conventional processes, and we need to change our ideas, our expectations, our behaviors, those kinds of things to support a sustainable future. And again, those 3 pillars of society, the economy, the environment, and us, social society, it's not one over the other. We're going to have to make this change in all 3 areas. So why are we warming? Basic, real quick lesson is as we have more CO2 into the atmosphere and other greenhouse gases, the heat from the sun is actually getting trapped within our atmosphere and our planet, warming us up, very simply. So here's some of the initial work. This is the report that was released last week by the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And this is their 5th report, the most recent. It's a summary that was released. And in terms of what it's telling us is temperatures are on the rise. Okay. Over the years, you're looking at 1850 to past 2000, 2014. And you can see where our temperatures are increasing, okay? And this is by decade. Again, temperatures are increasing. Some of the other results that they have released is that the northern hemisphere spring cover for snow is decreasing. I'll talk about this here in a minute. Ice extent, the summer Arctic ice is decreasing. Some of the things that are going up is heat and sea level. Here's a chart of globally speaking, and where we see where different parts of planet Earth are having different changes occur. So definitely in terms of the black line shows the trend line. Temperatures are definitely going up all over the place, okay? And we do see that temperatures are going down in some places from different anomalies. And I'll explain that in a little bit. So some of the first key things that they would like us to learn about in this latest report is that warming of the climate system is definitely happening. Since the 1950s, there has been unprecedented changes over the decades from previous times up to a millennia. The atmosphere and ocean has warmed, the amounts of snow and ice has diminished, sea level is rising, and the concentration of greenhouse gases are increasing. So this is This is what some of the previous reports had said, but now they're using stronger languages. And you have to know, for a scientist, is that they use strong language only when it's a for sure thing. So it's definitely stronger language here. They're saying, look out, get prepared, start taking action. Some of the observed from the rate of sea level rise since the mid-19th century has been larger than the mean rate during the previous 2 millennia. Okay, and they're high confidence. That's like, guys, it's really happening. Atmospheric concentration, carbon monoxide, methane, and nitrous oxide have all gone, unprecedented increase in the last 800,000 years. We're now seeing spiking. The total radiative forcing, that is the warming up of the atmosphere, has led to an uptake of energy by the climate system. The largest contribution is really, really correlating well with the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. The source of that CO2 is us. Human influence on climate system is clear. This is evident from the increase in greenhouse gas concentrations, as well as how it's forcing that air to stay and warm up over the planet. So what have we seen in Hamilton that bears this? And this is where I think we have a strength in Hamilton, because we've seen this. We've experienced it firsthand, and it's not an issue for discussion whether or not we've had extreme events in Hamilton. This happened in 2009. You can see the storm, what it looked like, and what it meant on the ground. This actually storm broke all our records in terms of design for our infrastructure. It significantly exceeded the amount of rainfall that most of our infrastructure is designed for. Not only had floods, but we've also had droughts. This is the 2008, 2007, 2008 drought, Spencer Creek. We've also seen when with droughts and we have those extreme events occur, what can happen with our stream banks. And if you look to the bank on the left versus the bank on the right, this is doing just fine. And this is not. And why is that? Because we've removed the riparian vegetation that would have been there to protect the banks. In 2011, we had what we call a downdraft in one of our conservation areas, and thank God it happened at 2 a.m. in the morning. These are over 50-foot to 70-foot trees that came down in a split second due to the downdraft. And it was just a complete several kilometers long through our conservation area, along a lot of our trails in that particular conservation area as well. And this is from Macleans Magazine. If the strange and severe weather was once hard to imagine, it's now hard to ignore. And what a difference a year makes. The picture on the left is 2011. The picture on the right is 2012, same time of year. In terms of our drought in 2012, that was also quite groundbreaking. This is our Spencer Creek through the Beverly Swamp. And it was pretty bone dry that year. And this stayed looking like this right till August. However, a few kilometers away, this is what was happening. This is a radar image. Here's our jurisdiction, the Hamilton area. Jurisdiction, here's the harbor. And you can see this red area in here. That sustained up to 184 millimeters of rain in 3 hours. While Spencer Creek over here was in drought. You just saw the picture. And these are our gauging stations along here, and this is what they recorded. 17 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 19 millimeters. And it all concentrated itself here. We never saw this storm coming. It came, it dumped, it left. And what did that look like? Like this. Talk about resiliency, eh? We will get that coffee. So, what does it mean for our local area? What have we seen locally? In terms of our annual temperatures, we're looking at temperatures and we're looking at the amount of precipitation that we get in our local area. Annually, for the last 41 years, we have warmed by 0.9 degrees. And you look back at the pictures that I just showed you, if you wonder what 0.9 degrees of warming means. Okay. Our winters have increased in temperature by 1.7 degrees. Everything has increased, but in particular, the winter. Okay. In terms of precipitation, well, our annual precipitation is going up by a small amount, 26 millimeters. And we're decreasing in the winter time, and the rest of the other seasons are increasing. But the problem is not the amount, it's how it's being delivered. So if you're getting 184 millimeters in 3 hours, and then the rest of the time you get no rain, you know, that change is what's more significant than the total increase. Okay? So we tend to have droughts or floods. So here's our comparison of our 3 hottest days. And the most worrisome thing, you can see the average of what it should be and what we've been getting in terms of the summertime, those intense precipitation events. But what's worrisome is the winter time. We're not getting those very cold winters anymore. Okay, we're tending to be warmer in our winter time. So let's talk about this, this winter, and I'll talk a little bit about the spring. We, as you know, we were Arctic Vortex. Everybody heard that term? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so this is us here. Okay, we're hanging out there. And you can see everywhere around us, it's a frozen wasteland. This was February 19th. On March 19th, this actually increased. It went from 82% ice coverage on the lakes to 92%. One of the second highest ice covers since measurements were being done. Okay? So, in order to understand our spring, we have to understand our winter and what's going on there. So those are our conditions. We started off in December with the ice storm. Okay? And we had a lot of ice being delivered in a very short period of time, that resulted in a number of issues for a lot of us. When you look at, and when my street got so full of snow, they came with an actual backhoe and removed, which allowed me to run out there and have a look at the layering. And there's the ice storm, okay, and there's every subsequent storm, ice, storm, ice, storm. You can see every single layer as it went by. And I was sitting chatting. It's not that we got excessive amounts of snow coming out of the sky, it never melted. You know, we normally get that January thaw. We didn't. We were in a deep freeze. And then when the ice breakup did occur, it was pretty incredible, okay? And then, again, the power of water. Never underestimate the power of water. So, is this warming? How does this make sense? You're telling me the planet is warming and look at what's happened. Well, that polar vortex that normally hangs out at the poles, when the Arctic actually got warmer, that polar vortex moved out. It broke into 4 pieces, and we were fortunate enough to get one of those pieces over central North America, which put us in a deep freeze and put the UK in some of the largest flooding events they've ever seen because of the warming of the Atlantic. So 2 things. The warming of the Arctic and the warming of our oceans are really what's going to create our weather patterns in the future. Okay? Some of us are going to be freezing, some of us are going to be very hot. It's going to go back and forth, but we are warming. Okay, so let's talk about the future. The continued emissions of greenhouse gases will cause further warming and changes in all components of the climate system. Limiting climate change will require substantial and sustained reductions of greenhouse gas emissions. So it means we already have enough, we need to be able to cut back, okay? And again, when you get these, you can have a closer look at what the details are. So, what has the IPCC found? These are scientists from all over the world that come to the UN and bring their collective knowledge and information. It is very likely the Arctic ice cover will continue to shrink. Global mean sea level will continue to rise during the 21st century. Why are we worried here about sea level rise? Does anybody take a wild guess?
Huge economic implications for the globe.
When you have islands disappearing and coastal regions disappearing, how do we start to look to some of those people? Are we prepared? we have some of the greatest natural resources of water, which is going to become the next oil. Okay? That's why we have to care. Climate change will affect the carbon cycle processes in ways that exacerbate the CO2 in the atmosphere. So those loops, the melting of the permafrost is going to add more CO2. As the oceans warm, they're going to actually start becoming acidic because they're absorbing CO2. So, gross changes. Cumulative emissions of CO2 will largely determine how warm we get. So again, making the connection between our actions and the evolution and the production of CO2 will be significant. So, I don't want to make you totally depressed. Mitigation, there's two things that we can do. We can mitigate. We can look at our own companies, our own lives, and say, how can we reduce the production of CO2, which is referred to as mitigation. In addition, adaptation is that we recognize, even if we cut CO2 emissions today to zero, the planet will continue to warm for the next 100 to 125 years. We will see impacts as we move forward. And again, as I said, this is not being one, thinking about the future and worried about our kids, and it's about us too. Okay, these extreme events are going to affect us in our lifetime. So adaptation is just to recognize what we need to do to cope with these extreme events and how we need to prepare ourselves for them. And we need to do both. So what can you do? Well, there's a number of things. Our website is here. On there and on the next website as well, I've got some brochures here about what we can do. And I think that's on the next slide. In terms of our daily lives, do we really need to make 10 trips a day in the car? Can we not plan ahead of time so we go at once, we do everything that we can do, and we come home? Can we use a bike instead of a car to get there? Can we, when we're replacing fixtures in our homes, it costs to be able to heat and to keep our homes cool. Can we use some alternate, what I call the drapery effect? Open and close the blinds accordingly. Using more energy efficient. This all goes towards reducing CO2. Okay. And these are not rocket science things. They're pretty simple things. But we talked about every little bit helps, right? So, and what can we do? Well, finally, it is not enough for people to know about climate change. In order to be engaged, they also need to care about it, to be motivated, and able to take action. And hopefully, that's something that you feel empowered, that you can. We, as a community, as a society, as individuals, we can all do this together and hopefully make a difference. Thank you.